So in today's episode, I actually am going to be doing a opening of a package I just received, as well as a quick overview of a game I just purchased that actually is closely tied to this package, and I'll make that connection here in a little bit. So if this is your first time joining, this is the Board Game Impact Media. I also make a podcast where I talk about board games and their impact. Some of those are reviews, some of those are interviews. But essentially what all this is about is I love board games, and I'm also receiving my PhD in human resource development. And so what I seek to do is to combine that scholarly research approach to breaking down games and game experiences and things related to the game hobby for you and your gaming group's benefit. And also just to try and help make my impact on a community that's already given me so much. And so if that sounds like something you're interested, I encourage you to also check out the podcast, as well as to click a like on this Facebook page or wherever you're seeing this, so that way you can see more of this content. And so got a little story to start all this off, and that story is that going back a couple years now, I've been playing games since I can remember. I remember playing Risk at a young age, of course playing things like Monopoly, but that's what we knew, right? We weren't yet exposed to the greater gaming hobby, and also that's one of the things I try and do with you. So if you watch some of the other stuff, I try and do that for you. And I'm here to help you in that journey as well. And so as I started learning and developing, I've had different experiences that led me in and kind of waded me through the water a little bit. And one of the things that was not only for my gaming development, but also for my, honestly, auditory development, and that was me getting into the world of podcasts. Not recording podcasts, but listening to podcasts. And one of the first podcasts that really got me hooked on podcasts happened to be a gaming podcast. And it was recommended by a couple friends of mine. And that podcast is the Secret Cabal Gaming Podcast, which I'm actually wearing a shirt that my wife got me that they made and is available on redbubble.com. And so the Secret Cabal is a podcast that's been around for a good number of years. It's essentially hosted by a group of friends. This is going to be a very short and quick synopsis of it, but it's a group of friends that essentially you're getting to listen in on their fun and engagement about games, but also they then break that fourth wall and are teaching you about different things in the news or the gaming experiences that they're having, and it just really feels like you're sitting and have known them for your entire life. And the quality of their content is just out of the water. They just do a phenomenal job, so I encourage you to go check them out. So it's the Secret Cabal Gaming Podcast. Now, what the heck does that have to do with Kickstarter? Well, they'd been doing this podcast for a good number of years, and essentially we're hitting a point where the podcast was growing so much and the community was growing so much because they actually put out essentially weekly content. So each week is a different thing. So they have their normal monthly episode that is what got them started way back in the day. That is honestly typically about 3 hours long. Now that might sound like a lot, but the time's going to fly by. You have things where they're talking about the banter, like just going back and forth about games they're playing or videos they're watching, movies they're watching, shitty or good movies that they're watching. Talking about other things, they do a typical review. There's one game that they review in the audio, sorry. And then they also go through a news segment. They go through different things. So it really has everything that you could want. But they also talk about role-playing games too, which is cool, or gaming experiences. And so that's one episode. Then they also do this thing called the Express episode, which is taking quick questions from the audience, so through their Board Game Geek Guild. So that guild is super active, and it's just about an hour-ish. Then they also have a thing called the Lords of the Dungeon, which is a different crew that's on that, except for the main host, Jamie. And they talk about the role-playing game experiences, because essentially they started out with talking about role-playing and board games and miniatures games and tabletop, but then evolved, and you know what? There's also this segment that really wants to hear more of this content too, so that is phenomenal content. And then they also switched and started doing some episodes called the Dungeon Masters Ludus, which they share, two of them Dungeon Master at different times, and they share tips and tricks and take questions from people in the community. So all of this is essentially to have fun together, be part of a community, and also share that knowledge with others, which is just a really great mission. And so essentially they were busting at the seams because they were doing all this part-time. And that's a lot to manage. And so Jamie, the main person for the show, was essentially hitting a wall. It could stay as it is, or it could grow into something so much better, so much bigger. But what he needed is the ability of time, and also to improve other things with the show, of course, resources. And so they launched a Kickstarter that was honestly called The Secret Cabal Gaming Podcast is Going Bananas in 2018, which is a phenomenal long name. But essentially what it enabled was the fact that if they hit their goal, which they did, absolutely did, and they did this over the last 2 years, Jamie, the main host, was actually able to switch to doing this full time, which I can't even imagine that feeling of hitting that goal and just having that moment happen. Jamie, congratulations on that. I know obviously it takes a village to make that happen. And so thank you to everybody on Secret Cabal for making that happen for Jamie, but then also the community coming out, because there was 1,795 backers that came and made this happen, and they raised over $86,000. Now that might sound like a lot, but that doesn't go that far, honestly. And you think of different conventions that they have to go to cover different things, games, getting everybody together. They're actually all over the world. So 2 of them are now in California. The rest of them are over in Pennsylvania, but then they record all over. And one of them used to be outside the country, which is crazy. And so they had different tiers on this Kickstarter. And so if you think about it, when you have 3 hours for an episode, plus an hour for that Express, an hour for the Lords of the Dungeon-ish, so that's already 5 hours of content a month, which I'm just going to pull back the curtain. So just to make a simple podcast that's like 20 minutes, you could be spending lots and lots and lots of time on the front end for scripting that, narrating, like designing how you want it to go, but then also on the back end of editing it, so that way it's going to sound perfect for you. Because for podcasts, it's different than all other mediums, because unlike sitting there watching something, having it on peripheral, which some people might just be playing it peripheral, but for podcasts, one of the main ways it's consumed is either in the car, and so that's pretty personal, just driving on a road trip, or literally in your head through headphones. And so you really want to make sure the quality is going to be there, so that way you're able to engage in that way. And they do that. And so I backed at one of the higher levels. So this is out of my own pocket, but also because I believe in what they're doing and I believe it's good for the hobby. And so I backed at what's called the Grandmaster Cabalist level, which is essentially just making me part of the community. But honestly, it's just a way of me saying thank you and just please keep doing what you're doing, because it's really great. And they've really helped me in the hobby. And that's why I wanted to take and make this video, to give a shout out to them, the great things they're doing, but also show you some of the cool stuff. So without further ado, I'm going to open up this package, and then I have a couple other things after this, as well as a game to show you that was actually recommended on the Secret Cabal, and that's why I'm showing it in this video, because I was able to just pick it up this past weekend while traveling with my wife. Okay, so it seems like a little envelope, but there's a lot in here. I'm just going to pour it out, and you can hear a lot going on in there. Okay, so what we have going on, we have a giant stack of promos. So with the Kickstarter, Jamie worked with a whole bunch of different publishers of different games to bring in a whole bunch of promos for those games that are exclusive to those. I'll go through those here in a second. So if you have any of those games, I'm curious what your thoughts are on the promo or things like that. And while I'm going through here, if you could just take a moment to put in some of your favorite podcasts. If you're a listener to the Secret Cabal and you're a Cabalist, put that definitely in the notes, because we want to come out proud, because it's a great community and we just want to support them and what they're doing. So some of the things we have in here are stickers, Cabals Till Death, as well as the Viking one. It's different themes. We've got Cobra dice, because the symbol is a war cobra, which is an awesome symbol to have. And so there's that, and it replaces the 6 on these dice, and there's 2 of those. Now, you might be wondering, so why are you making this video if that all happened in the past? Well, here's the thing. They're going to be having another Kickstarter come up, because funding doesn't go more than a year, and they're going to be having a new one coming up in about probably a month and a half or 2 months. I encourage you to listen to them, and any of the guys on the Secret Cabal, if you're watching this, I haven't heard in the latest episode when that's going to launch, so if you want to put it in, let people know, or the ish. But also a lapel pin, which is actually the same design as the shirt I'm wearing. You've also got another lapel pin, which is the original art from the show, which is the old school Cobra, War Cobra. You've got a bottle opener, which this is really heavy duty. These pins are the really nice pins. It's not the pins where it's just a button. These are where it's inlaid and then filled with paint. So these are just really, really high quality. And I know they're going to be doing some hopefully similar things or different things, but everything from the Secret Cabal is high quality. You've also got a challenge coin. Man, this thing is huge. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with what a challenge coin is and like, what is that? Why is it important? Challenge coins are a big thing in the military. So if you work on a certain outfit or a certain team in the military, each of those teams will have usually a challenge coin. So essentially, if you're going to a pub or you're doing something, it's your way to like show that you're part of the club, part of the group. Some airports have really, really nice displays of all challenge coins of different military people coming in from all around the world. If you fly through the Dallas airport, I believe it is the A terminal area that actually has this huge display of all these. I encourage you to check that out. But I've now grown and gotten more and more of these. But I also see a lot of these because I work with military students a lot. Okay, so the promos that we have. We've got this, which is cool. We've got one for Terraforming Mars, a very popular game by Stronghold Games, which is one of the main sponsors of the regular show, that 3-hour show I was talking about. This one is penguins, and so when I saw this, I'm like, also just a plus because I have traveled to the Antarctic, and it's the #1 place in the world that I want to get back to more than anywhere in the world. There's just a magical place, and so glad to have penguins now in my board game collection. Then you have this, a Fable card. It is the Enchanted Ale, which makes sense. And if you look in the back, there's actually the Secret Cabal logo on that cask. So this is from Grim Forest, which is made by Druid City Games and is behind me on the shelf. Really great game to play with people. These are some promos from Restoration Games. I believe in here is the Fireball Island promo for the Cabalist. Then another great, wonderful designer who uses Kickstarter and publisher, for that matter, is Red Raven Games, Ryan Lockett. And so you've got some promos for the game right behind me, Empires of the Void 2, which is a phenomenal light 4X space game. You've got the, of course, War Cobra Venom card for Evolution. Evolution's a really cool game that you can get a lot of different places. Fun game to play, and I believe, the card art on this was actually made by Brian Bender, one of the hosts that's on the show for the Lords of the Dungeon. So that's really cool to have actual art from somebody on the show. You've got this pretty sweet card. It's the Lawyer Up card. You've got this promo as well, and then you've also got this one, which is just really cool. This is for bottom of the 9th, and that is the crew of the main show just kind of acting a fool, because why not? Life's too short. And I did add on a couple things, and so I added on and got the Near and Far promos. So Near and Far is another game by Red Raven Games and Ryan Lockett. It's a wonderful storytelling game, beautiful use of, instead of having a board, you have essentially a book that opens up, and that is your board, and so you have different maps you can play on, as well as a storybook that has stories related to things, but you have to build your crew and then go out adventuring. And so you can add the Secret Cabal to your crew, which is sweet, and I look forward to doing that. And I also have the promo for Near and Far of Rodney Smith, and I'm going to talk about him here in a second, and that's from Watch It Played. But then, just kind of cool little treat is that they also throw in your membership card for your Cabalist, for being a Cabalist. That includes the oath on the back, which is really cool. So that's not all you get. There's one thing that I haven't received yet, and that's because he's still working on it, which makes sense. So as a researcher, and that's part of what I do in my PhD, right? It takes a long time to write, even a short article. It takes a lot. Like I was talking about before about making a podcast, is that much more to do it in written form, because words matter, and you're not able to convey as much or show things, right? So the only showing you get to do is through your words. And so Jamie has been working on a book that I cannot wait to get because I also love role-playing games. And the name of the book is Grand Adventures, a short guide to a better role-playing game. So it's Grand Adventures, a short guide to a better role-playing game. It's got really funny little art in the sides by one of the other hosts on the show, Steve. It's just really funny. Everything Steve does is funny, or at least tries to be. But I can't wait to get that. Jamie has said he's pretty much wrapped it up, but he's just keeps sending it out for different editing, which makes sense. Books take time, a lot more time than people expect, but I cannot wait for it. I know it's going to be great no matter what it is, because I love hearing the stories they create and the way they talk about some of the role-playing games that they play. Just awesome. Something else that I received, I had to print out myself, which is fine, because it's really special. Jamie worked with Isaac Childress, if you should remember that name, because that is the designer of Gloomhaven, made by Cephalofair Games, which is what Isaac owns. And so Jamie worked with Isaac, and if you don't know of Gloomhaven, go on Board Game Geek. It's #1. It's a game in which there's up to 96 different scenarios. The box weighs over 22 pounds because there's a lot of content that you can unlock, a lot of different maps and things to use, and it's just a phenomenal, phenomenal game that really tells stories, but it's also tactical combat, which is nice. Okay, so Jamie worked with Isaac to create The Secrets of the Lost Cabal. This is a really cool, just simple standalone adventure to utilize with the game, and I cannot wait to try it. Okay, so the last thing I have for you today that's unrelated to the Kickstarter, it just goes to show the great work that they do on the Secret Cabal, and that is they're really good at painting a picture of the gaming experience that you may receive, but they typically go through and really just show games that, like, yeah, these games are great, and let's highlight them for what they are. And so one game that I've heard Jamie talk about time and time again that he really enjoys, because he also enjoys like the really just cheesy horror movies, which that's not really my thing, but the art on these cards, I gotta agree with you, Jamie, it's pretty phenomenal. And that is Keymaster Games' Campy Creatures. So they did a Kickstarter for the second edition of this because the first edition's been so popular. This game is a very quick, really 20 to 30 minute trick-taking game for 2 to 5 players, and the art on these cards is like an old school movie if you were walking up to one of those like Art Deco, and so it's the different creatures that you'd see in these B horror movies and go and have that experience. So every person has the same deck of cards with the different monsters, and they are numbered 1 through 9, and then essentially what you're doing is you're playing your cards in secret, revealing, and then the card effects, there's 2 symbols, so ones that have the 1 symbol will trigger first, the ones that have the other symbol will trigger second, and so those can really impact the game, because what you're trying to do is have the highest number to then take the humans that you are earning points from. So getting teenagers and getting engineers, or getting negative points for getting the monster hunter, as you're trying to get the best humans to earn points, and then you'll win at the end of the game. It's just really cool. The art on these cards is just awesome, but I really love the different player powers through the cards that really come out. And so I just wanted to also highlight that, because I think it's just, they did a great job in highlighting this game, and been looking for it for a while. I wasn't able to jump in on the Kickstarter, and luckily I found a game company that had purchased a bunch of copies from the Kickstarter, and it just lucked out. But seriously, I highly consider you checking out the Secret Cabal, and then also while you're there, also check out my podcast, Board Game Impact. But I just want to say thank you, Secret Cabal, for everything that you've done. I just wanted to take this video to highlight some of that, and just continue to do awesome, and because I think you're making a really positive difference in the community, and can't wait to see what else y'all do. I know you started the video series, and that's going well, but seriously, keep it up. And to everybody else, I just want to say, go out there and have a positive impact on the world.